Well, welcome everybody to our Be Menifee Ready Emergency Preparedness presentation. Thank you all for joining us. The first step to preparing your household for an emergency is to learn the basics. So today we will be talking about general preparedness and home fire preparedness. My name is David Faust. I'm the member of the Menifee CERT team, and I'm also the volunteer CERT manager. And with me is Vanessa Barrera, one of our emergency analysts from the city of Menifee, and she's going to be assisting today in monitoring the chat. And specifically, just with the chat, with just some general housekeeping rules, we ask you that you turn your camera off so that it improves the presentation quality. You keep your microphone muted to minimize distractions. And if you need to change your speaker and microphone device settings to do that, and then use the chat box to ask questions, and we'll do our best to answer all the questions in the chat box or live during our Q&A sessions. Are there any questions before we get started? Okay, let's get started by talking about preparedness essentials and learning to be Menifee ready. So let's test your use of the chat box. On a scale of 1 to 10, how prepared were you for your last emergency? Please put your answers in the chat box, and we'll read them aloud. Any responses, Vanessa?
Yeah, we're seeing a few people typing. Give me a quick second. We got a pretty much prepared, and then also a 9.5.
9.5. Okay, is that with a twist? Well,
0.5.
that's how much?
0.5 away from 10.
Okay, yeah, pretty good. Almost a perfect score there. Well, we hope that after today's presentation, everyone will feel more informed about how to better prepare your household for emergencies and maybe get that 10.0.
We also have a fairly well prepared.
Very good. Well, that's great, and so I hope that those that aren't able to see this session live will be able to get to that level in their own personal preparedness and home preparedness. So thank you for your answers, everyone. Well, the facts are that disasters happen, and they happen often and sometimes with little to no warning. And they happen anywhere and at any time. And every year, communities across the United States face disasters like hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, earthquakes, and winter storms. Wildfires burn thousands of square miles, and home fires impact thousands of households. We typically call something a disaster when the following is true. Normal response systems become overwhelmed, people are hurt, and property is damaged or destroyed. So which type of hazards are we most likely to face in our area? You can put your answers in the chat box and Vanessa will read them aloud.
I think I'll start it off maybe flooding.
Okay.
Fires.
Great answers.
And we have somebody typing on the chat box.
Okay.
We have wildfire, earthquake, home fire, extreme heat.
Great answers. Yeah, those are great answers. We have the potential to face a lot of different disasters here in California. But the most frequent hazards we face in our local area are home fires, earthquakes, floods, wildfires, extreme heat, and landslides. So you guys were pretty good on your answers. Tsunamis are possible if you live on the coast, and that's something you should consider while you're making your disaster plan if you're living or visiting the coast. But it's not frequent and it's not a widespread hazard. But we all need to take these frequent hazards into consideration when we're planning. Here's a type of hazard that another type of hazard we may consider.
Got it!
Hi.
Can you help me?
I got it.
Thank you.
No problem.
Just like the rules to surviving Zombieland, there are steps you can take to be prepared for an emergency.
It's the right thing to do.
Talk with your family to make a plan. Look for safe areas to meet up if separated. And stock up on supplies. It's never too early to get prepared, so start now.
Right now? Right now.
You can't predict emergencies, but you can be ready.
You're welcome, America.
Visit ready.gov today to learn more.
Got it!
Well, I'm glad we don't have to worry about zombies. But in any disaster, a lot of people assume that someone else will be there to help right away. And however, resources just aren't there to support everyone immediately. First responders, disasters organizations, and government agencies and hospital emergency rooms, they do their best. But on average, these groups are staffed and prepared for normal day-to-day operations, and the resources may be limited during a disaster. The truth is, we need to depend on ourselves first because roads may be impassable, utilities may be unavailable, hospitals and first responders may be overwhelmed and need to prioritize their responses. And banks, grocery stores, gas stations, pharmacies, schools, and workplaces may also be closed for days. You may also need to help others, such as members of your household, neighbors, and those who have functional or access needs. So don't count on getting help right away and prepare to help yourself and others. And you know what? Part of our preparation should include our children. And here's a little video reminder on getting the kids involved. A nice little brief message from Emergency Preparedness Month last a couple of years ago, but I like that theme, prepared, not scared. So what does it take to be prepared? To be Menifee ready, you need to do three things. Get a kit, and your kit should contain the supplies you'll need at home or can easily carry with you if you have to evacuate. Make a plan. You should identify the steps you will take to respond to specific disasters. And for each disaster, decide who in your household will do what, where you will go, and how you will communicate with each other. And the final step to being Menifee ready is to be informed. It's important that you are informed. And so you need to learn now about how you will get information if a disaster occurs and what resources are available in our community. This will allow you to quickly respond to help yourself, your household, and your community. So now let's look at each of these in a little bit more detail. If a disaster strikes in our community, you might not have access to food, water, electricity, or a medical facility, or even a drugstore. So preparing a disaster kit for your household is an important step to keep everyone safe and healthy during and after a disaster. So consider assembling two kits of supplies. In one kit, put everything you'll need to stay at home for at least 3 days, and as you are able, work to gather enough supplies in this kit for at least 2 weeks. The other kit is often called a go bag, and it should be a lightweight, smaller version that you can take with you. And if you have to leave your home quickly, it should contain everything that you would need to be on your own for 3 days. and it's based on the needs of the members of your household. This could be one kit for the entire household or separate kits for each member. And then customize the kits to meet everyone's personal needs and the disasters that we identified that are common in our area. So let's do another quiz. How much water should we store in our emergency preparedness kits per person for each day? And please put your answers in the chat box.
I have people typing. Give me a
Okay.
quick second. I see 1 quart and more, and then I see 3 gallons per person per day.
Okay, well, thank you for your answers. And really, the correct response is at least 1 gallon per person per day. We use water for so many things each day, and we need to prepare water not only for drinking, but also to have water for hygienic purposes, as well as like things like brushing our teeth. So think of the water you store as half for drinking and half for sanitation. You may need more than this depending on the specific needs of those in your household. And of course, we live in a pretty hot climate, so that might need to adjust as well. But the minimum should be 1 gallon per person for each day. So to build our kit, think about what you use on a daily basis and what you might do if those resources were limited or not available. Start with the basics, food and water, and any life-sustaining items members of your family need to maintain their health, safety, and independence. So let's review a basic list of supplies, and don't feel overwhelmed by the following list. Preparedness is a process that takes a little time. So some of the things that you could include are non-perishable, easy to prepare food items, a manual can opener if you've got canned goods, and of course the water that we talked about. Because remember, you may be without electricity and you may only have the amount of water that you've stored. You'll also want to have a flashlight and a battery-powered or hand crank radio. And if possible, get one of those NOAA weather radios so that you can receive important weather statements. You may also sign up in advance to receive emergency notifications from your local emergency services. Riverside County has an app that you can sign up for. The American Red Cross has an app that you can sign up for to get emergency alerts. Extra batteries, a first aid kit, a 7-day supply of your medications and medical items, and also keep a copy of your prescriptions and the dosage and your treatment information so that you have that available to you. Include battery backup power if you have a mobility device or oxygen or any other assistive technology. And talk with your doctor or pharmacist about what other actions you can take to get that extra supply of medications. A multi-purpose tool is also great. Don't forget about sanitation and personal hygiene items. And include copies of personal documents such as not only the medication lists I mentioned, but and important medical information, but proof of address, copies of the deed to your home, your passport, your birth certificates, and insurance policies. Again, copies of those. And include digital photos of loved ones. And remember to update those regularly because, and we recommend about every 6 months or so, especially for children, because these can be helpful if you get separated from your family members. A cell phone and a charger, emergency contact information for each member of your household, maybe a little extra cash as if ATMs are not available, at least one emergency blanket, and then maps of the area in case the maps on your cell phone or computers are inaccessible. Again, don't feel overwhelmed by this list. Preparedness is a process that takes time, so consider building your kit at one step at a time and focus on adding a few items each week until your kit is complete. And for more specific lists, you can go to FEMA.org or redcross.org and follow the links to find specific lists on starting basic preparedness for your family. And don't forget to make a kit for your pets or service animals, and be sure to include the food, water, and identification tags and other necessary supplies for them. They need that 1 gallon of water per animal per day as well. So no matter what is in your kit, it's important that everything works when disaster strikes. So check the expiration dates of food and medicines and batteries at least twice a year and replace anything that is expired or is near expiration. Then consider your household's individual needs, and you may ask yourself the following questions. Do you or someone you live with have daily medications? You may need to have an emergency supply in your kit in case you run out before you get to the doctor. Do you or someone you live with have access or functional needs? You may need to consider assistive devices. And for example, there are radios out there that have a text display and a flashing alert for those that are hard of hearing. Do you have pets or service animals? Make sure you have everything you need to feed and care for them. And other things to think about or include items that bring you comfort during times of high stress, such as blankets, card games, books, etc. Items that you need that will help you prepare for the unique disasters that occur in our area. And since you don't know where you will be when a disaster occurs, consider preparing supplies for work and creating a kit to put in your vehicles. Things to consider if you make a kit for work are the following. It should be a single, easy to grab container such as a backpack or bag and be ready to grab and go. And we recommend that you have food and water in your kit as well as comfortable walking shoes in case long evacuations on foot are necessary. Having a kit for your vehicle is also a great idea and can be important in the event that you become stranded. Consider including the following: first aid, water, uh, uh, and food, maybe flares, and then consider seasonal supplies, like in the wintertime, having some extra warm clothing, like keeping a coat in your car at all times. You might also consider keeping jumper cables or a battery starter in your car in case your battery dies while you're away from home. So we've covered a lot of information about those kits, and we want to pause here for just a minute to ask if there are any questions about supply kits. And whether you want to ask those questions in the chat box or take yourself on mute, off mute, we can do it either way.
I think we are good to go. I don't see any on the chat box.
Okay. Well, the second part about being Menifee ready is to make a plan. Different hazards require you to take different actions. For instance, if we were in the Midwest during a tornado, we'd move to the basement or maybe the storm cellar or an interior room. For a home fire, everyone needs to evacuate immediately and meet at their designated safe meeting place. So knowing the hazards that are likely to occur in our area will help you develop and tailor your disaster plan. Begin by talking with everyone in your household about how to prepare for and respond to the hazards that are most likely to happen where we live and where we work and where we play. So identify responsibilities for each member of your household to do during a disaster and plan to work together as a team. And if a household member is in the military or has extended business travel on a regular basis, plan on how you will respond if they're away. And keep in mind that individuals with access and functional needs will need to prepare a bit differently, so make an inclusive plan for them as well. Do all of this by creating a personal support network that can help you plan and provide assistance if a disaster happens. Remember not to depend on just one person. Include a minimum of 3 people in your network and complete a personal assessment of functional needs and functional abilities and possible needs during and after a disaster situation. And make sure that you practice your disaster plans with all members of your family and your household and personal support, and including that personal support network at least twice a year. And again, don't forget about your pets. A lot of the shelters, like when the Red Cross opens up a shelter, they won't accept pets because of health and safety concerns. However, they do allow service animals. So in advance, contact your local emergency management agency for a list of pet-friendly shelters, or identify resources in advance in order to develop a disaster plan for your pets. When creating a disaster plan for any hazard, it's important to identify how you will evacuate. Regarding home fires, identify 2 ways out of every room. Draw the floor plan of your home and mark where each exit is. And if you live in a home that is above the first floor, you should consider how members will evacuate if the door is blocked. Safety ladders and fire escapes can be installed below the window to create an easy way out. Keep all potential exit routes clear of clutter and never block a door. And in the event you need to leave your neighborhood, plan and identify 2 ways to evacuate in case routes are congested, impassable, or closed. And again, practice your plan. This is the most important part of preparation, practice. By practicing, you ensure every member of your household knows the plan by heart and will be able to execute it in an emergency. Just yesterday in Riverside, there was a big fire, several hundred acres in the Santa Ana River bottom. And initially, the fire department, Cal Fire, issued evacuation orders for up to 400 homes and businesses, at least until by 9 o'clock. They had a pretty good handle on the fire within about 8 hours. But by 9 o'clock that night, they had downrated the evacuation from a evacuate immediately to evacuation warning, meaning just be ready. So hazards do happen, and they happen any time, especially in our dry, windy climate. We are prone to fires. So here are some other questions you should try to answer during your preparation. And in the event that you are separated during disaster, where will your family meet? So identify 2 places to meet, one close to home in the event of a home fire, and one outside of your neighborhood in the event that you cannot return home or are requested to evacuate. And consider any transportation challenges that might be encountered by individuals who use a mobility assistive equipment or those who don't have access to a vehicle. An important part of your disaster plan is also how you will communicate, especially if you and members of your household are not together when a disaster occurs. So make sure each member of your household has contact details for everyone and they keep the information with them at all times. So determine now ahead of time what important records you will need and where they should be stored. Do I keep them in a safety deposit box off-site, or do I keep them in a fireproof box in my home? It's also a good idea to keep copies in your kit, as we've mentioned. And if you are without power for an extended period of time or have to evacuate to a place, it's important that you have a place to stay already identified. So again, one place close if you must leave because of something like a home fire, and someplace farther away in case the entire community or region is impacted by an event such as a wildfire, earthquake, or a flood. And also plan for sheltering in place. This means that you stay at home. And if the authorities encourage you to shelter in place, ensure that all of your household members are aware of the actions that they should take and where in the home that they should go. Communication networks such as mobile phones and computers could be unreliable during and after a disaster. So build the capacity of all the members of your household to connect with one another during communication outages. Have a backup battery to charge your cell phone, as I mentioned, and keep important numbers written down in case you cannot access the contact list on your phone. So complete a contact card for each household member to always keep with them, something that you keep in your wallet or purse. And remember, text is best. If you're using a mobile phone, a text message may get through when a phone call cannot. Make sure your household members know how to text and be sure that the recipient knows that they should confirm that they have received the text. And it's also a good idea to have an out-of-town contact who can help your household reconnect, because sometimes it's easier to reach people outside of the affected area. Well, the third phase of our Be Menifee Ready preparedness plan is to be informed. We talked a little bit about being informed when we talked about how important it is to know the hazards that we should prepare for, but there's a little bit more to it, and it's an ongoing process. So here are some things that you should do. Know how your community warns of coming disasters. Some communities have outdoor sirens, others depend on media and smartphones to alert residents of severe weather or dangerous events. Use the NOAA weather radio or listen to a local station on a battery-powered radio for updated information. This allows you to access important information even if the power's out. And you may also want to consider having a list of the local stations in your disaster kit. And understand the difference between a watch and a warning and how to respond to each. As I mentioned with that fire yesterday in the Santa Ana River bottom, a watch means that there is a potential for a specific type of weather event or hazard. In that case, it was a wildland fire. So during this time, be alert, start making preparations, monitor weather and local emergency broadcasts, and be ready to take immediate actions if condition worsens. And I might add to that that if you have somebody that has mobility issues, access issues that's going to take longer than normal, you don't have to wait till the authorities say get out. Go ahead and leave in advance, and then monitor the alerts to see when it's safe to go home. And a warning means that a specific type of severe weather or hazard is imminent or already occurring. So you should take immediate action to protect yourself when a warning is issued. And regarding travel, it's a great idea to learn about the area that you're traveling to before you get there. Know what disaster risks they face and how to protect yourself. For instance, if you're heading back to the Midwest or the East Coast that are known for tornadoes and winter storms, know what to do. And lastly, get to know your neighbors. They can be a great resource of community information and may be able to assist if someone needs help. So we're going to now transition and talk more specifically about home fire preparedness, because this information is especially important because home fires are the most common disaster in our nation. So let's look at some of the major causes of home fires and home fire fatalities. Cooking is the leading cause of a home fire, and it accounts for nearly half of all the fires. And it accounts for about 19% of deaths in home fires. Heating, electrical, and lighting equipment causes about 25% of all fires. 19% of deaths are caused by improper use of that equipment, and 16% of deaths are caused by malfunctioning equipment. And smoking is the cause of only 5% of fires, but it accounts for 22% of all deaths, making it the leading cause of death in home fires. And many home fires can be prevented by following some basic safety tips. We'll talk about a few of those. You can reduce the risk of fire in your kitchen by staying in your kitchen when you're cooking. Never leave anything that is burning unattended. Most home fires begin when something is left alone cooking in the kitchen. So install fire extinguishers near the kitchen and outdoor grill and know how to use them. And we try to remember this by saying, keep an eye on what you fry. More than half the deaths resulting from home heating fires are caused by heating equipment that is too close to things that burn. So be sure to keep all flammable objects 3 feet from the heat. Plug appliances directly into a wall outlet, and remember extension cords are for temporary use only. Avoid overloading outlets or extension cords, and don't plug multiple extension cords or power strips into the same outlet with multiple appliances attached. Overheating outlets can cause fires inside the walls. And make sure your electrical cords are in great shape with no exposed wires, and don't attach them with nails or even run them under the carpet. Smoking obviously is dangerous, and failing to properly extinguish smoking materials, including cigarettes, pipes, and cigars, is the leading cause of residential fire deaths in the United States. If anyone living or visiting your home smokes, remember to request that they smoke outside. And if someone in your household does smoke indoors, remind them to never smoke in bed, when they're drowsy, or when using an oxygen tank. And remind smokers to use deep, sturdy ashtrays and ensure that all butts are properly extinguished before disposing of them. And keep matches and lighters out of the reach of children. And if you vape, never leave it charging overnight, and only use the charger provided at purchase. And do not use the device if the batteries are wet or damaged. Smoke alarms are so important as smoke alarms really do save lives. We recommend the following regarding smoke alarms. Install one on every floor, inside each sleeping area, and in the common area. Test them monthly and maintain them properly. And if you have batteries that need replaced, make sure they're replaced often. Clean your alarms as well. Replace the entire alarm every 10 years. And please don't disable your smoke alarm. Three of every five, 3 out of every 5 home fire deaths are in a home that has no smoke alarms or the alarms were not working. So having a working smoke alarm cuts your risk of dying in half. So that is so important. And it's important to know what to do when a smoke alarm goes off. When fire starts, you may have less than 2 minutes to get out safely. Get out and stay out. Don't go back inside for any reason. Find a safe fire escape route by checking the door with the back of your hand to check if it's hot. If there is smoke, stay low to the ground. Get out, meet at your designated meeting place, and then call 911 once you are safely outside and wait for emergency responders to arrive. We reviewed this before, but it's worth mentioning again. You should have a safe meeting place that's away from your home where your household can regroup. Home fires are confusing, and often family members will need to take different routes to safety. Your meeting place should be in the front of your home so you can meet firefighters and let them know that everyone is safe and accounted for. Remember, always call 911 from a safe place outside your home. If you're in a closed room when a fire begins, it's important to know what to do. Look for smoke coming through cracks around the door, and before opening the door, feel it with the back of your hand as it is less sensitive than the palm of your hand. Be sure not to touch the doorknob, and if the door is hot, leave it closed and use your second escape route. And as a last resort, if you're unable to evacuate, seal the door by placing cloth around cracks or openings to keep the smoke out as much as possible, block all the air vents, and call 911 and signal for help out a window with a light-colored cloth or flashlight. This may get the attention of a neighbor or a passerby who can also call for help. So let's watch a little video that just kind of goes over these principles on creating a fire escape plan.
Do you know what to do if your home catches fire? Studies show that you may only have 2 minutes to safely escape a home fire. But by taking some steps in advance, your family can safely escape in 2 minutes or less. Here are a few prevention and response tips for home fires. Prepare by identifying and removing fire hazards in your home. Anything that gets hot needs plenty of space. There should be at least 3 feet between heating items and anything else that could catch fire. Turn off space heaters when not in use. Always avoid smoking in bed, and don't leave candles lit when unattended or at bedtime. Make sure your children know they should not play with fire, matches, and lighters. Keep matches and lighters in high or locked places away from children's reach. Be sure that you have working smoke alarms on every level of your home and inside and outside sleeping areas. Make sure to test them once a month to make sure batteries are working. And if your smoke alarm is more than 10 years old, it's time to replace it. Discuss your outside meeting spot and fire escape plan and practice your drill with your family twice a year. Make sure everyone can get out safely in under 2 minutes. By taking these precautionary steps, you're off to a great start. But if a fire does occur, you'll need to know how to respond. Do not open a door if it feels warm to the back of your hand. Warm or hot door temperatures could indicate that there is a fire on the other side. Use a secondary exit instead. If your exit route is blocked, stay put. Open a window and wave something white to signal for help, such as a pillowcase or piece of clothing. Stay low to the ground and crawl to avoid breathing in smoke. Follow your family's escape plan. Get out of the house, do not go back in, and call 911 right away. With these tips, you'll be able to prevent fire and safely and quickly respond if there is one. The Red Cross has launched a campaign to reduce the number of deaths from home fires by 25%. For more information, visit redcross.org/fire. Thanks for watching.
Well, that's a great video that the Red Cross put together, and it kind of just reviews all the things that we talked about: home fire preparedness and what to do in case a fire occurs. You know, we learned today a lot about how to be generally prepared for disasters, including a home fire, but we must also recognize the need to be ready for the aftermath of a disaster. Disasters can be stressful, and the good news is that there are things that we can do to cope with that stress. First, be aware of feelings that come with disasters. You may feel physically and mentally drained, have difficulty making decisions or focusing, become easily frustrated, find yourself arguing with family and friends, feel sad, numb, lonely, or worried, and experience changes in your appetite or sleep patterns. So try the following to cope with the stress. Ensure that you and your loved ones are safe. Eat healthy foods and drink plenty of water. Get rest. Stay connected with family and friends, and be patient with yourself and those around you. Set priorities and break down tasks into smaller ones. Gather information about help and resources, and do your best to stay positive and help others. And if the stress continues or worsens, or you or someone you know is feeling life isn't worth living, seek immediate help. So here's another pop quiz. True or false? Feeling physically or mentally drained is a common symptom of post-disaster stress. You can put your answers in the chat box.
I see a true. Somebody's saying true again.
Great. Thank you for your answers. Yes, the answer is true. And as we just discussed just a few minutes ago, there are many ways to cope with that stress. Well, thank you for your attention today. You've gotten started by becoming aware of how to prepare for disasters and learning about the types of disasters in our area. But to be fully prepared, be sure to create and practice your disaster plan, build your kit, and become informed about your community. Test your smoke alarms every month. And please consider taking a first aid and or CPR class, or even becoming a Menifee CERT volunteer. And together we can help our community be prepared for any disaster. So, and finally, I want to thank you for your attention during our presentation today and your participation. We hope that you generally feel more prepared and will begin to take action to prepare your households. So at this time, are there any questions?
I do not see any in the chat box.
Okay, well, and that's fine. But again, thank you once again, and take care. And that will end our presentation for today.